These two women are brave, authentic, courageous, determined, and they've got grit. But most importantly, they act from the depth of their heart. First, I would like to invite Ms. Shala Azizi to present the award to Ms. Lina Rozbih.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Courage Award 2019 from the African American Women's Association, AAWA, goes to Ms. Lina Rozbih.
این بنیاد بی نهایت لطف کردن، مرا منتگذار ساختن و اجازه بسیار عالی و خارق‌العاده را به من دادن که از شان یک جهان تشکر میکنم و ممنون و سپاس از شما. چند قبل یک جایزه دیگه هم مشابه به این داشتم که من او را با تمام قلب و روح روان خود به زنای افغانستان اهدا میکنم، چرا که من در مقایسه با زنایی که در داخل افغانستان هستند شاید 1/1000 دشواری و مشکلاتی را که اونا با او مواجه هستند تجربه نکرده باشم و هر شعری را که من نوشتم و هر نوشته را که من در قبال زنا داشتم عام و تام الهام گرفته از رنج زنای افغانستان است، از خشونتی که بر اونا روا داشته میشه، از مشکلاتی که با او مواجه هستند. بنابراین تنها چیزی که من دارم قلم است و قدرت قلم و امیدوار هستم که با این نوشته ها من بتانم یک سهم بسیار کوچک و اندکی در جنبش احیای حقوق زن افغان داشته باشم. باز هم تشکر میکنم از شهلا جان، از تیم آوا به خاطر این جایزه عالی، به خاطر از دایر کردن این گرد همایی، برای که بر من هم فرصت دادن تا نظریات خود را در قبال حقوق زنها، در قبال مبارزه زنای افغان برای احیای حقوقشان با شما در میان بگذارم. و از من خواستن که یکی از شعرهای خود را از کتاب تازه که سیب و هواست بخوانم و زیادتر از این صحبت نمی‌کنم چون حتما همگی شما خسته هم شدین. عنوان شعر است خلقت زن. خدا وقت تو را می ساخت خودش بر خویش حیران شد، از اینکه می فرستد بر زمین حوری پشیمان شد. ستاره چید و بر آن رعد را افگند و صیقل زد، چو جفت کهربای تیره از آن جفت چشمان شد. لطافت از بهار آورد و آمیخت عطر گلها را و با خاک بهشتش جسم را سایید و بنیان شد. ز نور کهکشان و سحر و جادوی شب تاری کمی بر هر نگاهت زد و چشمت مهد طوفان شد. برای آنکه پیروزت کند بی دشنه و شمشیر، برای آنکه پیروزت کند بی دشنه و شمشیر، فسون کرد و به مثل تیغ در تو تیر مژگان شد. چو زاهد دید حسن تو برفت از دست ایمانش، چو زاهد دید حسن تو برفت از دست ایمانش، تو را با برقعی پیچید و جایت حبس و زندان شد. ولی صوفی که در تو بس خدا می دید و خالق را، ولی صوفی که در تو بس خدا می دید و خالق را، نگاهی بر نگاهت کرد و لرزید و مسلمان شد.
Lina John Rozbih, thank you so much. We were talking about the fashionable women of the 5,000 years ago. And when it comes to fashion, ladies and gentlemen, ladies especially, we love it. It's just like that. We're women and we love it. And all of a sudden you said a comment. Would you like to talk about that comment?
I just made a comment, yes. So I don't know if I'm politically correct or not. And I said, that's why they cannot force us to wear hijab. I think it's the nature of women. It's in our nature to want to dress up, to want to look beautiful. And it's not necessarily to please the man, because we feel good ourselves when we are dressed properly. So if you look at little girls, 3, 4 years old, they're not aware of their sex yet. They don't know that they're a girl. But what do they like? They want to dress up. They want to put high heels. They want to have beautiful dresses. So this is in the nature of being a woman, being a female, and does not necessarily mean that we are doing this to please man. It's in our nature. We want to look beautiful. We want to look dress up, and we want to do it for ourselves. So that's one of the reasons that this ongoing struggles with forcing women, or I can see mandatory hijab in some of the Islamic countries where it's forced to women, women naturally retaliate against it. And I want to also state that I'm not against the hijab. I think hijab is a choice. You can decide to wear hijab or you can decide not to wear hijab. And I believe that this choice should be given to the woman. We cannot force women to wear hijab. We cannot force women to not wear hijab. But we can always give the choice to women to decide whether to wear hijab or not to wear hijab.
Now to keep you here, as I said before, we have had some significant amount of progress when it comes to women and where we are in Afghanistan and outside of Afghanistan. You have to really, we really have to always include the Afghan woman. There is no such thing as the Afghan woman, because I'm an Afghan, somebody that wears the hijab is an Afghan, and in every single corner of the country and also outside. So if you were to, let's say, again, going back to the question that I asked Mr. Naveed, we do have these cliches or taboos that are actually false, but we teach it, rather, to the next generations.
Yes.
So if you were to go back to Afghanistan with that same thought, that's not going to work there. So how do you adjust that to there? Because this would work here.
I think the issue of women's rights in Afghanistan is it's not only one thing that we can pinpoint and say, okay, if I bring reform here, that the women of Afghanistan can obtain their rights and they can get ahead of or develop in Afghanistan. I think it's a collection of things. And I don't personally blame the people of Afghanistan, because if you take a look at what has been happening in Afghanistan for decades of war, very vicious and chaotic change in the system of governments. You have extremes from 5 years of civil war between the so-called warlord or mujahideen to five years of Taliban's rule in Afghanistan, which is called the darkest era of modern history in Afghanistan, not only in terms of women, but overall for Afghanistan. Then let's also admit this, that even before the Russia invasion, Afghanistan was not a developed country. We had a high level of illiteracy. We were a poor country. Whoever ruled over Afghanistan since the independence did not really do anything, or we did not really enjoy the so-called leadership that perhaps our neighboring countries, such as India and Pakistan, did. So I do not blame Afghans in Afghanistan if they don't understand me, and they're not to blame for that, but the condition and circumstances in Afghanistan, it takes years to rebuild a nation. We had 4 decades of war. Yes, maybe it will take us 10, 15 years to build bridges back, but the civilization building takes decades. So when you have generation after generation in Afghanistan who know nothing but violence, but war, but poverty, and but extremism, you cannot go to them and say this is women's right. To them, it's meaningless.
You talked about what's happening in Afghanistan right now. For those that don't know this, there is an incredible amount of movements which has emerged, which I call, well, everybody calls, it's kind of a social feminism movements that has been created by young women. By the way, 66% of Afghanistan is under 27 years old. Now that is a very young country. However, the 27 below are the ones that are making the change. Like My Red Line, for example, is a huge, very, very successful social campaign, and it's been all over, and it has actually made a difference in the international community because the platforms, such as this one, does reach them out. So if you were to pick a few, but because I mean, what we're going through right now in Afghanistan with women, how would you take that, change strategies so that we move on to the next step? What would be your suggestion? And I will ask the same question to
I
you.
didn't quite understand you. You mean how do we change the direction that these
Yes.
movements are?
Because it's in the big cities, right? And it's in these young women that are coming together, but they're not exceptions, but they're very few.
Yes.
So how does it pour to the
I would
country?
take you back to Taliban's era, because to me, as I said, Taliban era, in terms of current history of Afghanistan, is regarded as one of the darkest era for Afghanistan. But I always look at it as a brilliant era that portrayed the capacity of Afghan women in Afghanistan. Because yes, Taliban were ruling in Afghanistan. They had their own Emirat Islami government. What they did, the majority of laws that they had was pretty much to oppress women, to segregate, to create an environment where woman was pretty much invisible. And they were successful at it. They were not allowing women to get an education. They were not allowing women to work. They were not allowing women to even leave their homes without a male chaperone. And that male chaperone must be or someone very close to them. They could not, for example, go out with their uncles or aunts or cousins, etc. And this era is significant to me because of the amount of lack of attention that international community was giving to these women. The women of Afghanistan were pleading for help, but the US, majority of international organizations, and majority of the countries that are considered ally, they were too busy with their own political agendas trying to figure out what to do in a post-war or post-Cold War environment after the fall of Soviet, that they had very little time to pay attention to what's happening in Afghanistan. And yet what the Afghan women did, they broke every laws and regulation that the Taliban has set for them. Women were running underground schools at the expense and cost of their own lives. Families were sending their daughters to this school. Women health workers, doctors and nurses were practicing from their homes, providing help to women who need it. We had NGOs that were actually operating underground, providing aid to women. We had female activists. Few pictures that we have, for example, showing Taliban whipping or lashing women. We have a very, very disturbing video of a woman getting executed in the stadium. These are all courtesies of activists, female activists that were based in Pakistan, and they were recording and documenting the atrocities that the Taliban were committing against the women. So imagine, these women knew that their life is on line. If I'm caught running a school, underground school, the Taliban will execute me, and there won't be any US or UN to save me. But they put their lives on line, they protected their rights, and they went against the regime. So I think that era, if you ever doubt the resilience of Afghan women, you should go back to that era and see what the Afghan women are capable of when it comes to taking away their rights or preventing them from their basic human rights.
What I want to ask, not as a final question, but rather as a remark, what can you both, this question goes to both of you, what can you both give to the young Afghan girl, the second generation, let's say my daughter, who's going to be 18 next year? How can they, what can they do in order to help, first of all, through AAWA, or what can AAWA do in order to help, but realistic help that can actually be effective and sustainable? Is there anything that you can think about, or recommendations, for example, that could help even our international friends to come together, because it's about dialogue. This is what it is. Platforms, we talk about it so that we can find solutions. Often we don't find solutions, but after the 10th platform, we do find solutions. So
well,
you can start and then...
I can start since I have the mic. You know. Yeah, well, the thing is, I think education is very important, but it's also very important what we teach in the education. Are we going to teach them the theory of war or peace? What's the ideology of the education? What's the psychology of education? What kind of behavior we're teaching them? There are three important elements in education: psychology of education, ideology of education, and methodology of education. What methods do we use to make it easier for the student to receive it, male or female. If we teach them hatred, animosity, of course, or our nation is better than any other country in the world, or our religion is better than any religion of the world, then it's going to be very tough. I just want to take 1 minute of your time. As human beings, وقتی که ما تولد میشیم ما نمیفهمیم که کیستیم. وقتی اون طفل تولد میشه نمیفهمه که بچه است یا دختر است، مسلمان است، عیسوی است، هندوست، سفید است، سیاه است. این ماست که یادش میدیم و تمام تعصبات، تمام چیزهای افکار که ما داریم برای طفل انتقال میدیم. از اون خاطر شخصیت از طفل حتی نام خود نمیفهمه. ما بین چیزی که خودش از محیط خود یاد میگیره و چیز دیگه که ما سرش فشار میدیم تکمیل میشه. اینا یک تعدادش فکر میکنن که من کیستم، امید ما چیست در زندگی، فکر ما چیست، خواستهای ما چیست. باز وقتی که را انسان پیدا کرد باز میتونه یک لیدر شود. بباشه.
I think AAWA is already doing a great job. I don't know if I can add to their plate of what they are already doing, but I absolutely agree with Ustad Naveed that women's rights in Afghanistan is not only training or educating women. It's a not exclusive process, it's inclusive. So we have to educate men and women side by side because the majority of bias against women or violence against women in our society is generated from the fact that Afghanistan is a very male-dominated society, that there are a lot of taboos and traditions and beliefs that prevent women from doing what they want or from achieving their goals. And I think if we educate women and men together, and if we also try to shed light on some of the beliefs that are somehow misinterpretation of religion, such as a cliche or a stereotype connotation of woman. We call woman a naqis al-aql, or somebody who has a half of capacity or brain of a man. Or we believe that a woman cannot be a good judge, woman cannot be a president because they're emotional creatures.
But that's, that was, excuse me. Why is this so loud? But how come, I'm gonna pin you on this and say, it's a good thing. Why is it so loud all of a sudden? But that's exactly what is being said by all of these parties, not only Taliban, but the ones that are running for president, and I mean, just a few weeks ago.
Well, this is what I was going to tell when you said there are not only Taliban, but 20 more terrorist groups. Taliban and terrorist groups are not the only challenges that Afghan women are overcoming. Afghanistan is a male-dominated society. There are a lot of connotation, or as I said, misinterpretation of religion that associated actually to Islam and has no roots in Islam, that are also barring from women from achieving the goals that they set for themselves. So women are battling at different battlegrounds when it comes to their rights in Afghanistan, and Taliban and terrorist groups are just one faction or one part of this struggle.
And that's when I will take you to your slide, to this one. Okay. Because this is somebody, maybe you can give a quick...
Yes, well, I had a sort of presentation, but I'm glad that you didn't let me do it because it's very boring, me talking for 10 minutes, and I like this spontaneous question and answer. This was Farkhunda. I'm sure you're all aware of the incident that happened in Afghanistan. Farkhunda was killed by a group of men, and they were not Taliban. They were not Daesh. They were actually a group of young men, very well dressed, some of them in Western attire, educated, and this is what they did to this woman. So that explains how severe this mentality of bias against women is in our society. But what the women of Afghanistan do, I'm sure you're aware of that as Muslims, when we have somebody who passed away, a woman cannot lead the prayer, and a woman cannot carry the coffin of the mayyat on its shoulder. And the woman in Kabul broke that law. They took the coffin of Farkhunda on their shoulder and they put her to rest. So that in itself, I think it's a great example of how difficult it is to be a woman in general and how difficult it is to be a woman in Afghanistan. So as I said, and Mr. Naveed also emphasized on education, I think the only way forward for Afghan women is an inclusive process of educating men and women. So hopefully, if not in near future, in a few decades, the men are aware of what a woman right means and the women are aware of their rights, and then all this misinterpretation and this taboos and this cliche and stereotype that define women in Afghanistan is eventually demolished and removed by the power of education.
And what can you say to the young girls, there are a few here, of what they identify as the Afghan woman or Afghan women? Because that is also another challenge for us mothers to basically give that.
I think that's a hard question because I don't have a daughter, but I do have a young sister whom we try really hard to raise her in Canada the way that we define a good Afghan woman. And frankly, you fail, so you might as well give up. And I think the way the girls are, the second generation, they're very much aware of their rights. And if you want to go and raise them in a cliche way of being a good Afghan woman, which is absolutely given in to every wish that the parents have and obeying you, you're up for a challenge because they're not going to do that. So you might as well accept them as they are and try to be more of an understanding parents and try to encourage, again, education and try to encourage them to be a strong woman. The cliche stereotype of a woman in Afghanistan, my mom is a teacher. My mom is an educated woman. And the definition of a good woman, successful woman for her is not education, but a woman who has a husband and kids. So now you see what we are after. Even educated, elite, that few percentage of Afghanistan that manage to travel outside Afghanistan, they still think that a good woman is a woman who has a house, a husband, and children. So we need to try to let these girls to get the education, let these girls to have choices in life. And I think if you refer to Islam, this is what Islam says. A woman has the right to say no to marriage proposal. A woman has the right to read. Quran starts with Iqra, read.
And divorce.
And a woman has a right to divorce, absolutely.
Thank you.
Fortunately, it shows a very, very rich civilization. These are composite statues. Also, can I have next slide, please? This is Anahita. Anahita, the goddess of guarding the rivers, the running waters. And then that